Yo, what's up everybody, it's Victon here with another in-game build guide. For this one we're going to be going over a full Spectre build with a boss killing version and a map clearing version. As you can see from the gameplay showcase, the damage is just bonkers with this one. Showing you guys with just one player HP on these bosses just didn't do it justice, so I went ahead and pulled in my alts. I had 3 of them to these boss fights and did 4 player HP, and even with that we were wrecking these in-game bosses. Now, you might notice this build is certainly inspired by the one and only Ghazzy. He has some really awesome videos out right now about Spectres, so I'll leave a link in the description to his channel. Definitely go check it out if you haven't already. Where my build difference from his is the shield, the belt, and the flask choices, which of course we'll go over in depth in this guide. I'll also be releasing separate videos on how I crafted each of these items in case you want to self-craft this build and save yourself a ton of currency. Now, we have a lot to cover in this guide, and I'm going to try and make it not too long for you guys, but before we get going, if you end up enjoying this guide, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel, check below for a link to my Patreon, where something gets you access to some juicy benefits like access to my sub-only Discord, where you have an awesome community of others just like you, ready and willing to help with builds all day long. I'm also in there 24/7 doing build reviews for people as well. Other than that, feel free to stop by my Twitch channel, which is also linked below. I do stream about 3 to 4 times a week and love helping you guys out with questions that you might have, so definitely come by and hang out sometime. Back to the build guide though. The strengths and weaknesses of this build are as follows. Overall, this is certainly a top tier build, and I personally give this overall build a S rank. I am absolutely surprised by how few people are playing it right now. I think everyone just misjudged the nerf quite a bit. Drilling down a little bit further, for farming maps, I'd give this a solid S+ rank. With a quick gem swap, you can go from killing bosses with primal clutch claws to syndicate operatives and have insane clear speed. Very good AoE coverage, and you're freezing everything and shattering everything with those guys, which just makes it great for mapping. For boss killing, this is an easy S++ rank, as good as you can get. As y'all could tell, this is what I've been using to clear 5-man HP the feared bosses like Uber Elder, Uber Adsiri, and Cortex, so clearly a top tier boss killer. For survivability, I do have to give this build an A+ rank. We end up with about 8.5k ES, which is a decent chunk, but it's really the only layer of defense we have outside of bone armor from the Necromancer Ascendancy. At least with that amount of life pool, really the only times I'm ever dying is when I have these 3-man HP feared fights. Other than that, I really rarely ever die, if ever. I can actually solo clear an 8-mod corrupted 120% the feared no problem without dying. It's when you add in those alt accounts, when you double and triple the HP of the monsters, that it gets a little bit sketchy. With that amount of quantity, I'm actually getting 1.2 entire Maven fight orbs as in splinters, which is pretty crazy per run. But to sum it up, I have a decent ES pool of 8.5k, which will occasionally get you still one shot if you're doing some crazy scary boss fights or in-game 100% delirious maps, but if you're not doing that, you are 100% fine and will very rarely, if ever, die. For damage, this is another clear S++ rank, again as good as it gets. I don't have the best in slot helmet or cluster jewels, and I'm still doing 12 million shaper DPS per primal clutch claw boss damage, so 60 million total damage, and that's not including my animate guardian, who's giving us triple curse, culling strike, and crit multi for a crazy total of 15.9 million shaper DPS per crush claw with a total of 80 million DPS. It's honestly pretty hard to beat that. As far as the build cost goes, I estimate this build cost me about 100x to get the base in-game version fully built up and running, and as it currently stands, it probably cost me around 130x, almost fully min-max. That's with Awaken multi-strike as well. You of course can start much cheaper than this and only spend about 10 to 15 exalts to get the build going. Let me know if you guys are interested in the comments in a budget version of this, and if you guys are, I can work on a guide for that. Honestly though, even at 130x near min-max, that's without cluster perfect jewels or the helmet, I'd say this is a very good investment. Doing these boss kills with this build is a crazy strong way to make currency right now, and it is currently our top strat for making currency between me and my map partner. Or you can of course do 100% delirious maps with the syndicate operatives and also make a ton of currency that way. Both versions are incredibly strong and will make you all that currency back very quickly. But yeah guys, that was a general rundown of the build, and now we're going to go into the path of building, where we're going to go over the skill tree and then the gems and lastly the gear. So without further ado, let's hop into the path of building.
All right, we are in path of building. Let's go ahead and hop in here and go over everything that you need. So I typically do leveling guides built into these guides, but for this one, we're not going to do that because this is an in-game version of the build. Typically, I have down here like a tree, but just note we're not going to do that in this one. I do have a leveling guide for a Spectre build in my channel, and there's also plenty of guides out there on the YouTubes. Like I mentioned earlier, Ghazzy has some videos as well for some league starter guides on Spectre, so check him out. You can check mine out, but this one is going to be definitely just for the in-game version of the build. With that being said, I'm not going to go crazy in depth into this because it could take forever, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go over some of the more important nodes. First of which, of course, is we are Chaos Inoculation. We are not using Life, we are using Energy Shield, so we're going Chaos Inoculation. We're also getting as much mana reserved as possible, so we have this over here, and we have this here. We don't need to pick up these nodes down here, so don't worry about that. But as long as we get that, and we get this, and then we get a piece on our amulet, then you will have enough for all of our reservation here. So outside of that, really it's pretty basic here. We're really just getting as much energy shield as possible without having to go out of the way for it. As you can see, we have some down here, we have some here, and a little bit here. Outside of that, the cluster jewels that the regular jewels that we're using here, pretty straightforward. We have an energy from within, the 6%, and also the 7% increase effect of non-damaging elements is pretty good here. It's a corrupted implicit, so you can get an corrupted version of this. Basically what that is going to be doing, it's not a whole lot of damage. You really don't have to get this, but if you're min-maxing, it is a good thing to get. It gives your skitter bots some extra damage on their chill and their shock, so pretty good for your skitter bots. Same thing here, actually. I have an unending hunger with the 7% increase effect of non-damaging elements, so shock and chill from your skitter bots, so pretty good. Unending hunger is mainly for mapping. You could actually just take this out if you are doing boss kills. It really doesn't do much for you if you're doing boss kills. And for our other cluster, or for our other jewel over here, we have this Ghastly Eye jewel. Now this is pretty important. So we have the minion damage, increased damage if you've used a minion skill recently. We also have just the basic, additional physical damage. Getting some attack speed on here is pretty nice as well, but really important actually is that minions deal 12 to 18 fire damage. So they have 100% crit chance with this build, our minions. And if you get any amount of fire damage, they're going to be igniting. And we are using a Cinder Swallow, which I'll go over later, but that is going to give 10% more multiplier to their damage if they're burning. So make sure you use a minions deal a little bit of, it doesn't even have to be a big roll, minions deal a little bit of fire damage on there as well. So I wanted to definitely note that real quick. Moving on, the main thing about this build is actually the cluster jewels. As you can see, most of our points are going into our cluster jewels. And the reason that we're doing that is for two things. One, we're getting a ton of energy shield and resistances. That's where we're getting pretty much all of our resistances, and energy shield is from our clusters. And also, of course, damage. We'll go over our large clusters first. And these are, of course, pretty much almost best in slot. They're not the best that you can get, but they're very good. You don't have to get ones just like this. You can just start out with something that's like an adds 12 or adds 11 passive skills, and what you could at least do is maybe try and get some energy shield, and then that instead of 35% increase effect, you could even just get 25, and that's just fine. That's what I started out with, was just energy shield and then the 25% increased effect, and it was totally fine. That's a super cheap jewel. You can get that for probably 20-30 chaos, no problem. And to get the vicious bite, all you have to do is have an open suffix and augment critical strikes, and it's a guaranteed 100% you get vicious bite, so very good for that. We also have the increased attack and cast speed. Now a best in slot one would actually be a tier 1 roll, which is 3%, and then if you have that 35% increased effect, it actually goes up to 4% increased attack speed, and that's an absurd amount of attack speed. If you can imagine, you're getting 4% attack speed on every one of these nodes. It is so much attack speed. I don't have that right now, and I'm just destroying the game. So again, you don't have to have that best in slot jewel to be wrecking the game. It's totally fine, even with mine. And again, you can even start with the 12 energy shield or whatever energy shield and just the 25% increase effect. That's what I started with, and I was doing all these bosses just fine. So, but you want to get the exact same thing on both of these large cluster jewels. So the exact same thing. So moving on to your medium cluster jewels, it's going to be the same thing for all 4 of them. So pretty easy. We're definitely going to want Precise Commander and Vengeful Commander as kind of the base of your item. It is good to get maybe some dexterity, some strength on these as much as you can, because we're a little bit starved. As you can see over here, 131, 134. You actually need 127 of strength and dex. So as long as you can get 127 strength and dex somewhere in your build, if you cannot get it on your cluster jewels, you can of course always pick up these nodes here. But then again, that's just 2 points that you don't have to use if you don't want to, right? If you're getting them on your medium cluster jewels. But just note that that is an option on the budget side for sure. So Vengeful Commander, Precise Commander on all 4 of these. And then again, as you can see here, I just have like all attributes for strength and dex. I have some strength here, and over here I have more all attributes. That's kind of what I was going for. Now moving on to our smalls. Our smalls are incredibly important. It's giving a ton of defense. This is where you're getting almost all of your energy shield. I have a ton of energy shield here. I have 8.7k, which is very, very good for a Spectre build like this. And the only reason I'm able to have that much is because of all of these small cluster jewels. So on this one specifically, I have a 25% increased effect, which is buffing that base 6% increased maximum energy shield. And then from there, I'm getting as much base energy shield as I can, as well as some resistances. So it's actually very, very good. So when you see on this one, I have 6 cold and 8 lightning, and then you get 3 of those. So much energy shield and so much resistances is coming from your small cluster jewels. Now, of course, you can try and craft these yourself. What I would do is scour alch, so you can get the 4 mods there, but also you could even honestly just do alteration crafting. And as long as you're hitting, I would say maybe if you're alteration crafting, you would want to go for energy shield and for the increased effect. And you can always use harvest crafting to add on like augment lightning, augment cold. And if you get something that's different, that maybe you have way too much fire in your build, remember that you can always use harvest crafting to change your fire resistance to lightning, change it to cold. You can do something like that to make sure you even out all of your resistances. And I have the same thing basically through all of these here. I just have as much energy shield as I can get, and then a little bit of resistances. And I literally do that for all of them. I think on this one, I had to go with a little bit more attributes in order to get up to that 127. So again, if you have to do that, go ahead. If you don't have to do that and you have good gear, more power to you. You can just use more skill points. So I could maybe use a skill point over here instead, right? So that is your small cluster jewels. That's how you craft them. Very, very easy. As far as this one, I forgot to mention, to get that increased attack speed, you could do 2 things. You could augment you could augment speed, but that's very, very expensive. On TFT Discord to purchase that craft, it's like 5 or 6 exalts, which is absurd. You could augment attack. Augment attack will get you that speed roll. And I got lucky on mine. I at least got a 2%. Again, you can have, there's a 1% roll, a 2% roll, and a 3% roll. If you get that 3% roll and you have that 35% increase effect, it goes up to 4. So very, very good. I don't have that. I can barely notice it. I do enough damage anyway. And then of course, getting that vicious bite by augmenting critical. So overall, that's the skill tree. The ascendancy here is a very, very basic necromancer ascendancy. The first thing that you're going to want to pick up is mindless aggression. And the second from there, you want to pick up unnatural strength. This just gives a ton of damage and survivability, because they're going to get damage as well as life from having increased levels. Next, I would actually go with the Commander in Darkness if you're leveling this up, because it gives you a ton of elemental resistances, which is very, very good. We do not want our Spectres to be dying. And our Syndicate operatives do have issues with dying in the super in-game content, which is one nice thing about the Primal Crush Claws, because they have so much HP. I've never lost a Primal Crush Claw, not even close. Those guys have so much HP and are super tanky. From there, we have Bone Barrier. There's a couple options here that you can do. I used to go with Plaguebringer. I think it's still really good. But with this build specifically, where we're not going to personally be able to use our flasks, I'll go over that in a little bit. For example, we're not going to have bleed immunity on our flasks, right? Getting something like Bone Armor, which makes you immune to bleed damage, is very strong. Plus, even more so, just having that minions have 20% more maximum life is very good, especially for your Animate Guardian, who is going to be pretty beefy in this build, and you do not want him to die ever. So getting that 20% more maximum life is very, very good. So that is your Ascendancy tree. Pretty basic on that. Tree is actually pretty basic. It's just, it costs a little bit of currency to buy these cluster jewels. The base of this cluster jewel is you can get anywhere from 6 to 10 exalts. If you set up like alerts on your tree, you can get them at about 6 exalts, and then you craft it yourself, and it'll probably take you, I don't know, 3 to 5 exalts to craft it yourself. Not too bad, but if you purchase them straight up, they're anywhere between like 20 to 50. So very expensive to just purchase it straight up. I would definitely suggest you guys try and craft these yourself. Same thing with the mediums. The mediums are pretty cheap, honestly. Maybe 1x for each of them max. And then the smalls, I actually bought all of these small. I didn't even craft all these smalls. I bought them. I set up alerts on my PoE trade website, and anytime that a jewel like this popped up, I was alerted, and I bought every one of these for under an exalt, and they're fantastic. Literally all I did was I searched for increased effect and energy shield, a tier 2 roll at least energy shield, and I harvest crafted the rest of it. For example, the cold res, the lightning res, and some of these just came with that. Like I think this one specifically came with 6 cold and 8 lightning, and I got it for an exalt. So pretty not bad at all. Most of the time those are way expensive, but again, if you set the alerts up on trade, you can get alerted, and you can maybe snipe one every once in a while and get a pretty good discount. So that is the tree itself. Let's go ahead and move on to our skills. Okay, so what I've done here is I've actually given you guys 2 options. We have the Primal Crush Claws, which are the boss killer, right? So I have them here, and also if you want to go ahead and switch over to the Syndicate Operatives for your map clearing, you can do that. You just do enabled, and then you disable the Primal Crush Claw, and you come over here to right here. So Primal Crush Claw, you go Syndicate Operatives, right? And then you click Syndicate Operatives, and this is how much damage the Syndicate Operatives are doing right here. So that's how you do that. So let's go back to the Primal Crush Claw. Click, 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 Primal Crush Claw. And we'll enable it. Okay, very good. So lots of damage, lots of damage. So we'll go over this. So Race Spectre, you definitely want a level 21 Race Spectre. The more levels that you can get on your Spectre, the better. Again, more damage and more survivability for them. Very, very important to get levels. Because after their nerf last league, they were pretty good last league. They really never died. Even your Syndicate Operatives really never died. But they got such a big nerf on their levels and their life with this league that it's even more so important to get levels on your guys just for that life even. Luckily, the Primal Crush Claws just have so much life it doesn't even matter. Good thing here is you actually don't have to get any quality on these. You can if you want, but you don't really need to. Just get the level 21 gem. So I have Awakened Multi-Strike. Of course, if you don't have that, it's okay. What I would at least suggest is maybe to pick up a Divergent Multi-Strike. That has more damage than a regular Multi-Strike. Awakened Melee Fizz is very, very good. That should be one of your first purchases if you're doing the Primal Crush Claws. As far as you're upgrading your gems, Awakened Melee Fizz is going to give you 10% chance to intimidate enemies for 4 seconds on hit, which is 10% more multiplier, so a lot more damage. And I actually went with increased critical damage here because, again, we have 100% crit chance with these Spectres. And I want to, the other one that you could do here is Elemental Focus, which is more damage, but you're going to be losing out on freezing. So going with crit damage here, you're going to be freezing everything. I literally freeze in-game bosses, even like Chayula. The pure Chayulas are permanently frozen with this build. So very, very good. And you can actually pick up a 21-23 for not too expensive because nobody really uses increased crit damage, so not too bad. So that is my the links for the Crush Claw, and of course that is in this helmet, which we'll go over in the gear section, but it's also going to have +3 levels, some minion damage, hypothermia, and crit chance. This, I think this cost me around maybe 15 exalts to craft. I got a little bit lucky, so anywhere between 15 to 25 to craft this is what I would expect for you guys to pay, but that's kind of what the links are. Again, we'll go over how to craft that in a little bit, and I'll probably do an entire video on how to craft that helmet as well, but there's also a whole bunch of videos out there right now already on how to craft. I think, like I said, Ghazzy has a pretty good one if you guys want to check that out as well. We'll do like a crash course crafting in this video. So moving on to the Syndicate Operatives, we have the Race Spectres, of course. We have, again, the Incrit damage. And we have Awakened Greater Multiple Projectiles and Awakened Vicious Projectiles. Same thing, if you don't have the Awakened versions, no worries, just get the normal gems. And what I've done in my helmet here is, because I want to switch between these as easily as possible. So what I've done is I've crafted 2 white sockets on this helmet. I have 2 blues and 2 whites. So I can switch out these 2 greens with these 2 reds anytime I want without having to recolor the helmet. Very, very nice quality of life change there. And in order to do that, what you guys should do is make your helmet a 4 blue helmet, and then go into the June mission and get the Varici, which I'm pretty sure he's in research, the 1 to 3 white socket chance per that craft essentially is what you want, and I got 2 on mine, and that was just fine. You don't need the 3, you do need at least the 2, so that's how you craft the white sockets on these helmets. So I got 2. Very nice. So moving on to our weapon, which we actually do have it in our trigger weapon. So all of this is going to be manually or automatically casting for yourself. You don't have to manually cast any of this yourself. It's all going to be automatic. So we have Desecrate, we have Flesh Offering, we do have a Divergent Flesh Offering for more attack speed, which is very good. 10% attack speed is very, very good. And we have Frost Bomb to shred some cold resist, so very, very good for that. And we have in our boots, we have Hatred, Generosity, Summon Skitterbots, and Bone Chill. For Summon Skitterbots, you can really do whatever. I have minions have increased area of effect, which is just a little bit of a help there. Nothing too crazy here. Just the Hatred, it is kind of important to get that level 21. It's just a little more damage. You don't have to, again, if you don't have that. I actually don't even have an Awakened Generosity in here. That could be even more damage if I did have that. Moving on, in our gloves, we actually have 4 green socket triad grip gloves, and it's always difficult to get use all these green sockets. So I actually have a portal gem in mine as well. So I have dash, second wind, and portal, and I also have in there precision as well. I don't have a very leveled up precision, but it's a little bit extra damage and is pretty nice. So I only have mine up to level 5. I think you can go probably a little bit more. You can probably go up to maybe like 8 or something. But if you guys are having mana issues, definitely check out your precision. You might have leveled it up too much, so don't do that. So moving on to our weapon, this is going to be on our shield. We have Frostbite, Stormbrand, and Awakened Hex Touch. That is so that we're getting 2 curses on our character. If you don't have the Awakened Hex Touch, we'll go over this in the gear section, but we actually have Curse on hit, we have Assassin's Mark on hit, on our ring. So if you don't have Awakened Hex Touch, then do not get a ring that has the Assassin's Mark on hit. Just use Frostbite and you'll be totally fine. And again, the Awakened Hex, it has to be 5 as well to get that +1 to supported curses. Moving on to our ring, we do have this in our I actually have not even crafted this yet. This is my my crafting version of this ring, but it's +2 level of gems, and then minions deal 35% increased damage. And I have that, my Vol Discipline in there, so I can get a couple levels extra on my Discipline. Moving on to our setup for our body armor, we have Animate Guardian mixed with Feeding Frenzy, Convocation. Elemental Army is very important to give him some tankiness, especially if you're doing these in-game bosses. Minion Life, again, very, very important for tankiness. And then Summon Carrion Golem is for a little bit extra damage. They provide some physical damage to your minions as long as they're alive. They do tend to die occasionally in these in-game bosses. Just make sure you're resummoning them and you're paying attention to the fact that if they're up or not. Now, you can also get Divergent Animate Guardian, which is pretty good. That has 40% increased maximum life. It's roughly the same as a 21 gem regular Animate Guardian with the life, so do note that. You can either probably get a level 21 Animate Guardian or a level 20 Divergent Animate Guardian, whichever one you prefer. And it's very, very expensive to get a 21-20 Divergent, so I wouldn't even suggest that. It's like 10 to 15 exalts. Not really necessary. But the Feeding Frenzy is quite important as well. It's just giving you a big buff. Convocation is huge. We absolutely want to make sure that we have Convocation in this build. Convocation allows you to resummon all your minions right with you, right? And so what you can do for this, for both of these Spectres, actually, it's very important. You want to sit right on top of that boss, Convocate right when the boss is about to let you damage it, and when you do that, all of your minions just hyper focus fire on that boss, and they do so much damage, especially the Syndicate operatives. If you're able to Convocate right on top of a boss, they actually shotgun with all of their projectiles, so even more damage. So Convocation is extremely important. Moving on, like I said, Assassin's Mark on the ring. We have Elemental Weakness on our Animate Guardian, which I'll cover. Let's just cover it right now. So the Animate Guardian, I'm going to do a quick kind of 101 course on the Animate Guardian, what we have. So we have a Mask of the Stitch Demon for the helmet for the Animate Guardian. On our chest piece, we have something that's actually pretty specific. I actually had to craft this myself because there was none available, and it's going to require a Awakener's Orb, so it's about 3.5 exalts to craft this chest. This is if you want a triple curse setup. You don't have to do this, but I went with one that has both, and you can apply an additional curse and nearby enemies are blinded. That's what I have on there, and then I actually multi-modded to also get some cold resistance, and you can either do that or you can get some cold resistance and chaos resistance, whichever one you want to do is fine. But the reason we're doing that is because of the gloves that I put on my Animate Guardian. I have gloves that have really high fire resists and lightning resist and chaos resist. At a minimum, you should get gloves that have that fire resist, lightning resist, or cold, whatever elemental resist you want to do, but make sure you get at least chaos resistances as well. We want to max out our dude's resistances as much as possible. I got lucky and I snagged a pair that also had all of that plus elemental weakness on hit, so super good. I was very happy about that purchase. With that, I was able to go triple curse, and if you do the triple curse, you need the chest piece to also have +1 to maximum curse, as well as the boots should be the windscreen boots that also has +1. That gives us a total of +3 so that we can do all of our curses. If you don't go with a chest that has the elemental weakness on hit gloves, then you do not need to get that extra curse, +1 curse on either your boots or your chest. At that point, I would just get a chest piece and even the boots that just have as much resistances and chaos resistance as possible, and then on the chest still get the nearby enemies are blinded. Very good. So with that, it's a ton of damage on my Animate Guardian. So let's take it off. 16 million, it goes down to 14.9, so about 1 million DPS for that third curse. So very good actually. And that's really it for these skills. So let's go ahead and move on to our items. So for our items, again, I'm not going to go like a full crafting guide on all of these. If you guys are interested in that, I could do specific ones, specific little mini guides for how to craft each of these items. Just let me know in the comments which items y'all want me to show you guys how to craft. In this guide, at least, I will give you guys like a cost of how much it cost me to craft these. And again, I'm going to shoot you guys over to Ghazzy. He has awesome videos on crafting all of these. So definitely check out his videos if you want some in-depth crafting guides. So for my weapon, I did go with the +2 minions, and it has a temple mod, so the 66% increased damage and 5% chance to deal double damage. You can buy these bases for about, I think they're like 5-6x, at least when I did it. And then you have to kind of craft it yourself. Again, there's some shenanigans with crafting it, and it's pretty much always going to cost you about 15 to 16 exalts to craft this pretty consistently. That's why I would always suggest you guys to not buy one straight up, unless you just don't want to go deal with crafting it, right? But it's going to save you at least about 10 exalts. And then I multi-modded it to have trigger a socket spell when using a skill is very important, and then I just got some attack speed as well. So a pretty basic wand here that is an in-game wand, cost me about 16 exalts to make. For the shield, we're actually going with a shield for ourselves. I know a lot of people go the Necromantic Ages. I think Ghazzy did that as well. I'm doing this shield specifically just because I need a little bit extra ES in order to do these in-game bosses. When we have 4 and 5 player HP for these bosses, the fights take longer, and I do not want to die because I have less portals. Because I have so many ults in the room, I can only use 1 additional portal with me and my partner. So if I die, that's very bad. So I needed a little bit more ES, and getting a chest or getting a shield for myself instead of going Necromantic Aegis gave me about 2,000 energy shield, and that alone pretty much causes me to not get one shot anymore, or at least for it to rarely happen. Whereas before, when I had about 6.2, 6.3 KES, I was getting one shot a lot more. So that's why I went with a shield like this. This is actually a pretty cheap shield. It's like you can get one of these anywhere between 5 and 10 exalts, upwards of 400 to 430 energy shield. Not too bad. This is actually, I'm confused. This actually doesn't show my right. I have 440 ES. I'm not sure why it only shows 408. It's kind of weird. I think it's maybe just the quality. But yeah, at least get a 400 ES shield, and that's probably about 4 or 5 exalts and upward. A little bit of resistances on there as well. Helmet, this is the big boy helmet, okay? So, and this isn't even the big boy helmet. This isn't the biggest boy helmet. This is like right under the biggest boy helmet. So +3 to minion gems, +20 to minion damage, +20 to hypothermia, and then socketed spells has +3 to critical strike chance. I could also augment something on here for another resistance if I wanted to. I don't necessarily need that because I am capped. But that's the base of at least what you want. Now, I also have on here, by the way, 30% increase Assassin's Mark Curse effect. I did a lot of testing, and that actually is the best enchant for all of these builds. It's better than the Flesh Offering attack, Flesh Offering enchant. It's better than Spectre damage. I was surprised. It's not that much better than the Flesh Offering, which is the second best, and then Spectres being the third best, but it is still very good, and it was cheap. I got this base for like 1 exalt when I started crafting this, because I think just nobody uses Assassin's Mark Curse effect, but it's very, very good for me, and it deals more damage, so I was happy with that. I guess I'll give you a crash course on how I made this. Super crash course. But you want to start with the base item, right? I think it was a Shaper eye level 86 helmet, bone helmet, so I can get that minions damage with the exact enchant that you want. And then I used... Ooh, we got a whoop. Let's save that for later, though. Let's go back to my helmet. Where'd it go? There we go. So I just crafted with bound fossils. You could do a couple different methods. I'm not 100% sure on what they are. Again, I'll make a full guide for this if you guys want it. But for the most part, I just used bound fossils, and I ended up with a +3 to socketed minion gems and a +20 to minion damage gems. And then from there you can, and I'll just kind of mention a couple things. So you can essentially augment cold to get the hypothermia, and then you can augment crit to get that spell crit. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Check out the Ghazzy video. I might even just link that in the comments for you guys until I post my own video. It's really not a hard helmet to get. It just costs you currency to make. It's going to cost you anywhere between 15 to 25 exalts if you want that, the 20 minion damage and 20 hypothermia, and then the 3% crit chance. The 3% crit chance cost me about 7 exalts. You have a 1 in 3 shot chance to get that. So you augment criticals, or you augment crit, or maybe even augment caster. I can't remember. Again, I'll post that in the comments. But point is, you can remove add, right? So if you remove add, it rolls between the 1%, the 2%, and the 3%. It took me 7 tries, so that kind of sucked. So it really just depends on RNG, kind of how much this costs to make, but it's much cheaper to craft yourself than actually just buying it. But it's very easy to get. It's all deterministic. You can get it very easily just with the currency. So moving on to our body armor, we absolutely need a maximum number of Spectres. That's absolutely huge. It's 25% more damage basically. So very, very good on this. And then I went with one that I also just got a little bit of resistances, and then I multi-modded to get some energy shield. And it's only got about 430 ES. I could craft this again and get a lot better one, but I'm doing just fine with that for now. For your gloves, you absolutely want one with the 4 green sockets. Now, to get 4 green sockets, you want to do the benchcraft trick. It's so much easier than doing chromatic orbs. Doing chromatic orbs to get 4 green on this item is terrible. Do not do that. If you do not know how to do that benchcraft trick, I will link a guide in the description of this video for... I had a guide maybe a month or so back that gave you a whole bunch of tips and tricks for Path of Exile. In there is a guide on how to do socket colors like this that you need. So check that video out if you don't know how to do that yet. Now on this item here, I want to mention this because everybody asks me. The normal item only has everything above where you see it says Animate Guardian. Everything above there is the normal item. Everything below that Animate Guardian is the stats that my Animate Guardian give me. I manually inputted that into this item. So if you guys do not have an Animate Guardian that has this stuff, then you want to go over to the Triad Grip Gloves, and it shows you the correct DPS. So we're actually at 10.6 million DPS without an Animate Guardian. With an Animate Guardian, we're at 16 million. It's a huge buff. And I forgot to mention earlier, I said everything, but obviously the weapon that you go with Animate Guardian is a Kingmaker. I apologize for not saying that one. So that was the only thing I didn't mention there, and the reason you're doing that is for a couple reasons. The biggest being it gives you Fortify, so very good defenses. It also gives you Culling Strike, which is basically a 10% more multiplier. Enemies your Spectres hit that are at 10% or below HP instantly die, so that's a 10% more multiplier. And they also get 50% increased crit multi, and again we have 100% crit chance in this build with our Spectres, so that is so much damage. And then on top of that, I had the, as you can see here, apply additional curse, which was the elemental weakness. that was about 1 million DPS, so a ton of DPS to set up your elemental, to set up your animate guardian appropriately. But again, if you don't have that, you can just check this and that is your appropriate DPS. So I do, so I'm gonna select that. So for my boots, the biggest thing here is getting the +2 to level of all race Spectre gems. You get that through the Maven Orb. If you have a +1 to race Spectre gems and you Maven Orb it with, you have to have another thing on there as well, right? If you guys know how Maven Orbs works, you need like +1 to race Spectre and then some other thing like Fortify or something, right? And it picks one of those 2 special Elder mods and it elevates it and it deletes the other one. In my case, I don't remember what I had for the second one, but I got so lucky. I purchased these boots. It came as is with a 30% move speed, cannot be frozen, some resists, a little bit of ES, +1 to race Spectre, and then it had some other random Elder mod. I hit that with an Maven Orb, and I got this, and it cost me 2x plus the Maven Orb, which at the time was 4x. So these boots are honestly kind of expensive to make now. I just got extremely lucky. I would say you're probably going to spend anywhere between maybe 10 and 20 exalts to get a pair of boots like this. Unless you get lucky, you might spend a little bit less if you want to craft it yourself. Of course, if you don't want to spend that currency, that's totally fine. You can just get a +1 to race Spectre gems, and that's going to be super cheap. That'll be like an exalt or 2. So not bad at all. For the amulet, I self-crafted this. This isn't even the best amulet that you can get. I actually could do a lot better with this amulet. You at least want it to be on a strength dex base. So I think that's what's a Kitrine amulet. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the +1 to level of all intelligence skill gems on an amulet. And you're going to have a second amulet with Hatred has, I think it's 21 to 25% reduced mana reservation. And you're going to use an Awakener's Orb on those 2, and you're combine it, and make sure you combine it onto the Kitrine amulet, because we want that strength and dex. And when you do that, whatever you get is what you get. And in my case, I got strength, I got some rarity, and that was it. And then I was able to at least craft on their 20% increased maximum energy shield. So not too bad, but it's pretty straightforward amulet. Some things that you want on it, you know, if you get some resistance, that's good, I guess. That's not really required, but maybe hitting like some flat energy shield would be very good. So that would be very good. But easy amulet. This is like, you know, anywhere between maybe 5 and 6 exalts. Not big at all. Very good. So moving on to my ring, I already mentioned I have not fully crafted this item, but these are the base stats that you want. You want at least 2, ideally maybe even 3 to level of socketed gems. That's for your discipline, and then some minion damage as well. I would ideally want on this some flat energy shield, and also energy shield recharge rate increased. So I think it goes up to maybe like 15. That is what I would ideally want on this. Moving on to your second ring, this is an interesting ring that you don't have to do, right? On mine, I have level 12 Assassin's Mark when you hit a rare or unique enemy. So that is why you need that triple curse, that extra curse on your animate guardian. And if you don't have that, again, it's totally fine. It's not going to be game breaking or anything if you don't have that, but at a minimum for this ring, you really want to focus on your strength and your dexterity to get that up as much as possible. Ideally, you also want some energy shield, and then on this one I was able to craft faster start of energy shield recharge rate, so pretty good for this amulet. At least get some strength and dex and a little bit of ES on here would be my opinion. Now for the belt, here is how we take this build to the next level. This is a 1 chaos belt. It's actually insane. So I'm going to check out of this belt here. Let's look at the damage. 16 million, 9 million. This belt gives me what? Math. A lot. It gives me a lot, okay? 7 billion damage, right? That's so much for this belt. Why does this 1 chaos belt give me this much damage? Literally no one is using it. I think me and my map partner and maybe one other guy on Path of Building, the PoE.Ninja, are using this belt. It's insane. First off, it does not allow you to use your flasks. That's pretty scary, right? That's why I'm trying to get as much ES as possible in this build. That is why I have that 8700 ES, because I don't get to use flasks myself. Where that hurts the most is being immune to bleeding, which we have solved by having bone armor. Being immune to, say, freeze, that's why I had to get it on my boots. right? If you don't have that on your boots, then you're going to get frozen all the time, which is not good. And also things like, you know, being immune to ignite. There's no way to clear ignites now. But all that's, it's okay because it adds so much damage that you just absolutely destroy everything. Damage is defense in this case, right? Damage is defense. And we have enough energy shield pool for it to be okay. So that's kind of why we're doing this. So let's go over it. So flasks do not apply to you. Flasks instead apply to raised zombies and specters. Insane. And there's some really crazy flasks that we can use for our specters here. So let's go down the list. Cinder Swallow, nothing too game breaking with this. Again, remember how I said earlier that you want some fire damage on your single abyssal jewel? That is for this one right here. Enemies ignited by you, so the specter, during flash effect take 10% increased damage. So they're always going to be ignited because it's 100% crit. So you're going to be doing 10% more damage with that. And on top of that, they're going to be getting life and energy shield on kill. So they're going to, in like a map scenario, they're going to be a full life 24/7 because they're going to be getting so much life back from killing monsters. And then on there, I also have the increased critical strike chance during flask effect. I'm not sure if you actually even need that, but there's also really no other flask options that are good. So I went with that one because I already had this flask, but the base of Cinder Swallow is what you want because it gives you 10% more damage and a whole bunch of life gain on kill. So moving on, let's see how much that damage that gives. So that, look at that, that goes from 13 million up to 16 million, a whole lot of damage for that one. So Lionized Roar is only for your Crush Claw, your melee boss killing specters. As you can see here, it's 25% more melee physical damage during effect. So very, very good. Again, we go from 12.8 all the way up to 16 million. Very, very good on that one. What I would do here, if you do not have Primal Crush Claws and instead you're doing Syndicate Operatives, is, do I have it in this list? Do not. Oh no, there we go, dying. Okay, I forgot what it was called. We want to go with the Dying Sun flasks if you're not doing the Primal Clutch Claws and instead you're doing the Syndicate Operatives. Dying Sun is actually crazy for Syndicate Operatives. 2 additional projectiles during flask effect and a little bit AoE, which doesn't really matter, but the 2 additional projectiles is crazy because remember how I said if you convocate on a monster, that moves all of your specters down to the boss and then they shotgun. So having more projectiles is insane. So Dying Sun instead of where is it? I have so many flasks here. Instead of the melee flask, the Lion's Roar. So moving on. Aziri's Promise is absolutely crazy as well. 20% physical damage is extra chaos, 15% of elemental is extra chaos. Very, very good. That takes us, it's not the most one, but it's about 1.5 million DPS for that as well. Taste of Hate is very, very big. 20% of physical damage as extra. Actually, that's not even my right one, but so you want the biggest roll possible. So gain 20% of physical damage as extra cold damage during effect. So let's turn that off down to 14 mil. So again, 1.5 million DPS for that. And also some of these are giving some defenses to your specters as well, like this one. 20% less cold damage taken and 50% cold resist. So very, very good. Same thing with the Lion's Roar. It's giving them armor. Very, very good. And then this flask is incredibly important as well. It's also a 1 chaos flask. All these flasks are relatively cheap as well. The Cinder Swallow probably being the most expensive. So Deodri's Elixir is very, very important. So as you can see here, you gain a power, frenzy, and endurance charge on use. So one of the issues is that we've easily solved is it removes 20% of your maximum energy shield when you use, take 10% of your maximum life as chaos damage on use. Those really are not even an issue. It's very easily, they have a little bit of leech through the tree, they have some regen, so it really doesn't even matter. The big things is it gains a power, frenzy, and endurance charge on use. So with this, you're going to have 3 power, frenzy, and endurance charges on use or up all the time when you're mapping. No question, you'll always have max charges for your specters. During a boss fight, you typically have about 2 charges, and then you can get upwards of 3 depending on certain bosses. But for example, like Cyrus, you're usually only going to have 1 or 2. The charges last 10 seconds. So if you ever have more than 10 seconds of downtime, your charges will drop. But if you have, you know, normal boss fights, anything that I've been doing so far on like the feared stuff, I have full charges all the time, and it's so much damage. Let's take, watch, first off, if you take that off, it's not going to affect this, right? Because it's in the calculations. Let's just show you how much damage that flask alone is adding. So we're at 16 million. I'm going to take off the power, the frenzy, and the endurance charge. We're down to 6 million. It adds 10 million DPS. Insane. Insane. So, very, very good. Moving on to our clusters, we already talked about those. I think we actually already talked about all of these clusters. The unending hunger, energy from within, and then we talked about that this cluster down, or this ghastly eye jewel as well. So, I think that actually covers it for our items and for our skills and our trees. I guess in items, the only thing I haven't mentioned is the amulet. The anointment. So we want to allocate Grave Pact as our anoint. So what that is right here is just, it's a whole lot of damage. It's attack speed, it's damage, it's some accuracy rating, which really helps our Syndicate Operatives. They lost some accuracy rating with this patch, and then 4% chance to deal additional double damage, which is basically a 4% more multiplier. So very, very good. And I'm glad that we actually went back on this, because there's one thing I wanted to mention. So Elemental Equilibrium, we are using Elemental Equilibrium. And the reason we're doing that is we are using Stormbrand. Stormbrand is our spell that we are casting to do a couple things. One, it's applying Frostbite on hit with our Awakened Hex Touch. And it is second, applying lightning damage. So I'll show you how much that damage that does. Now basically the way it works is when you hit with lightning damage, they're going to receive 25% resistance to lightning damage. So it's bad for lightning damage, but they take 50% reduced cold and fire. And we're doing 100% cold damage with this build and a little bit of fire. So they're taking a whole lot more damage from those two. So I'll show you how much damage this adds. So it's this calculation right here. So we're going to take that off. 11 million up to 16 million. So crazy having Elemental Equilibrium. Very, very crazy. Now that we're on the screen, I'll kind of, I guess, show you guys some real quick things. This is very accurate DPS. I have not done anything crazy on the calculations here. Ignited, they're always going to be ignited. They're always going to be chilled because you have a 100% crit chance. And they're always going to be intimidated as well. I guess good point there. So if you're using Syndicate Operatives, you will not have, unless you do something. Let me go to my skills. Animate Guardian. So we have Awakened Melee Fizz in our setup for the Primal Clutch Cross, right? So we're getting the Intimidate on our helmet. If we do not and we go Syndicate Operatives, we don't have that, right? So you can do a couple things. You can either put that in your Animate Guardian setup. For example, I used to have, instead of Elemental Army, I had the Awakened Melee Fizz there. You don't have to do that. It's really up to you. I prefer to have the Elemental Army for defenses so my Animate Guardian never dies. It's 10% more damage is not going to make it or break it with the Intimidate, to be honest. So I would stick with this setup, even if you're using the Syndicate Operatives, and then just if you're using Primal Crush Claws, you just get extra damage, basically. So that's what I would do. Back to configuration. But honestly, other than that, there's nothing crazy here. I made sure it was the boss damage and exposure type cold. That is going to be because we have Elemental Army on our Animate Guardian and our Carrion Golems. They will be giving cold exposure via Elemental Army to monsters, so you're getting a little bit extra damage there. Feeding Frenzy is of course active. Number of summon minions, that actually doesn't affect anything, and then I have those charges equipped. So pretty nothing crazy here. This is very legit DPS that you're seeing here. So 16 million DPS, very, very good. For Pantheons, I think this is probably the last thing that we'll mention here, and then we're going to go in and actually do a map for you guys. Pantheons is I do have Soul of the Brine King. Basically, I don't want to get stun chained, so that's why I'm doing this, so I don't get stun chained. I have Soul of Aberrath is my second one, and that is so I'm unaffected by Burning Ground. Burning Ground really messes with CI builds, because if you ever like walk over some Burning Ground and you stop regening your energy shield, it makes it pretty rough. Plus you can just run that as a map mod for free now. So I went with those two. There's probably a couple different things you can do with that, but those are what I picked. So I was very long-winded, but I hope I gave you enough, because I did kind of go fast as well. If you guys have questions, you can obviously ask in the chat. What I wanted to do now in the chat, this isn't Twitch, in the comments, or you can come on Twitch chat as well and you can ask there. So what I wanted to do now is actually hop in, and I'm back. Sorry about that. I actually crashed loading into the game when I was switching from POB to the game. I've had serious issues with crashing. I'm sure a lot of you guys have as well. Sorry about that. But basically what I want to do is hop into game and show you guys a map and then a guardian kill, so you can kind of see the mapping and the damage of boss killing. So we're gonna go ahead and open up this portal, and I'll talk about how I have my skills laid out as here as well. So we have bone armor on our left click. The reason we do that is because anytime you run around, it's also automatically going to cast bone armor, so pretty nice for that. Also I have my let's kind of load in here real quick. I have my Stormbrand on my right click. So basically what I have for that is it's going to be auto casting via my wand, Desecrate, Divergent Flesh Offering, and Frostbomb. So I use that like this. I just spam it, right? And it does all the stuff for me. Very good. Obviously I have Dash, I have Portal, but most importantly here probably is my Vault Discipline. Now I have Vault Discipline for one specific reason. We're not able to use flasks in this build like I've mentioned, so being able to have Vault Discipline is very useful. If you ever take a lot of damage, you can pop Vault Discipline if you have it up, and it'll recharge your ES all the way up to full. So pretty good. So let's go ahead, and now again, these are not the best for clearing maps, right? For normal mapping, you would probably want to use the Syndicate Operative version of this build. But I didn't want to switch it. I just want to show you what these are. So imagine this, but like 3 times better for map clear, basically. But these are the better boss killers for sure. So I do want to show you guys the boss damage of a Conqueror. Here we go. All right. Where are you? Here we go. I'm not going to use any of my flasks because I want to use them when we go in here. So definitely don't do that. Make sure you prep your flasks appropriately. So we're gonna do Convocate, and we're gonna do our flasks, and he's dead. I literally stood in his face and almost died, but don't do that normally. But that was insane damage. It instantly died, and this is of course Awakener level 8. So the damage was very good. Don't stand on top of him. You'll probably die. So but yeah, the damage was very good for that. The map clear speed honestly isn't too bad with these guys. They have a really good AoE clear speed with their geysers. So let's see if we can get some geysers going. You see all these geysers that pop up all over the place. It's good and it's bad. It's bad because you can't see anything below you, so it makes it kind of hard to see like the ground effects of things, which is kind of rippy sometimes, especially on these big boss fights when like Maven is throwing her orbs around and you literally cannot see them, so you always have to be moving around. But they do so much damage that it's worth it because they do so much damage. So yeah, I mean that's really the playstyle. I wasn't gonna go too crazy with showing you guys a giant map or anything like that, but I at least wanted to show you guys a Conqueror fight and just general mapping, so you kind of get an idea of what it's like in real time type of thing. So let's go ahead and go back to the hideout here, and we'll talk about my final thoughts on the build. So basically this build, we spent what, 130x, and it's doing all content in the game. With a simple swap of Spectres, you can be absolutely destroying any maps, even 100% Delirious, it's totally fine. Then you swap out of the Primal Clutch Claws and you're doing insane boss killing. As you could see in the gameplay footage in the beginning, right? I was doing 5-man HP bosses for these in-game bosses. Like there's no point in even showing you guys the 1-person HP damage for any of these bosses, because it's insta kills, like you could see from that one right there. That's how every single fight looks in the game, until I do like the 2-player, the 3-player, the 4-player, the 5-player, and at that point it's a little bit slower, right? And it gives you kind of a better idea of the damage that we're putting out. But I mean 80 million DPS is pretty good. If I had a better helmet, like if I had the big boy helmet, which go for like 200, 300 exalts, I don't even want to know how much damage I would be doing with this build. That one gives you 30% more elemental damage as well, so I'd be doing 30% more damage than I'm doing here. So what, another 5-6 million per Spectre, so another 30 million damage total. It's insane. And then my clusters as well, right? We could be getting another probably, I don't know, 40% attack speed if I had better cluster jewels. So again, tons of damage. But at this point, I don't even feel like I need to get those upgrades. I think I'm perfectly happy where I am now. I think the build is doing fantastic. It's doing everything that I want. it to be doing. I was really happy about the belt edition of the build. It's unique. It's a 1 chaos belt. Actually, you know what? I forgot to mention this. Hatred has increased aura effect. Try and get one with that. You can. They're so cheap right now. I'm gonna assume that they're always gonna stay cheap because there's so many of them. But corrupting them for Hatred has increased aura effect is very good. It actually gives you a pretty good DPS boost. If you don't have that, it's literally worthless. I think it's like life or something. Yeah, it's a leather belt, so it's life. So using an item like this that absolutely no one is using for 2 chaos, I paid for this one. I paid 16 chaos for the Hatred. It has increased aura effect. I corrupted a bunch myself and didn't get it. You can also get like increased energy shield as well, but Hatred's the best one for sure. I've enjoyed this build quite a bit. Me and my map partner are both playing this build, doing those in-game bosses, and I hope you guys, if y'all do this build as well, y'all have a lot of success with it as well. Farm up some currency, have a lot of fun, both the boss killing and the map clearing version of the build. If y'all come up with anything crazy as well, let me know in the comments. I've had a ton of times people will message me in the comments or on my Discord and say, hey, try this out, try that out, and I do it. It's like, it's crazy. So message me in the comments if y'all think of some crazy cool stuff as well. And if y'all don't enjoy this build, let me know that as well. Maybe there's some things that we can improve upon. Always down to improve. But I think that's all I got on this one. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all we got on this one, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out. If y'all made it this long, I don't even know how long this video is at this point, 50 minutes, an hour. I used to not like doing these long videos, but I think really for these specifically, it's very important because there's a lot going on with understanding of how it works. So if you made it this far, you rock. I appreciate you, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.